Welcome to Tech Biz Now. Our episode today is called Balancing Business and Babies, the Entrepreneurial Parent. In this episode, we will look into the art of juggling the demands of running a business while raising children. Our guest Michelle is a seasoned entrepreneur and parent. She shares her journey, offering a candid look at the challenges and triumphs she experienced along the way. Also, in this episode, we will explore daily routines, time management hacks, creating boundaries, having support systems, and handling stress and self care. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Tech Biz Now. I'm Anna, and we've got a very special guest today, Michelle. Hi, Michelle. How are you?
Hi, Anna. I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Okay. Yes. Thank you for becoming a guest in our podcast today. Before anything else, can you tell us more about you and your business, Michelle?
Sure. So I am a financial services copywriter. My business is called Let Me Write, and I offer services to financial and professional services businesses. Everything marketing, really. So I write SEO blogs and quite a lot of LinkedIn content and other things like ebooks and lead magnets. So yeah, that's what I get up to.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so today we'll be discussing about business and how to balance it when you have children. Um, so my very first question to you, Michelle, is that can you tell us a little more about your journey when you started your business and at the same time you became a parent?
Well, I became a parent before I started my business.
Okay.
So I was an employee at the point when both my sons were born. But when they were about 7 and 8, I started a training business initially. So I was working with other parents, as it happens, running childbirth classes and first aid training. So that was the first business I ever set up, and then ran that for about 8 years, and then I set up my current business, which is the copywriting. So I've been running that for around almost 5 years now. So over that time, my children have grown up. Now they're now both in their early 20s, so it's quite a different place where we're at compared to how much they needed me at the beginning when I first set up when I did my first business. So
Yeah. So you mentioned they needed you more when you first started your first business. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you faced during that time?
I guess sort of feeling that I was pulled in, quite a few different directions at that point of time, sort of setting up a business, managing the home, dealing with the children and school related stuff, and having childcare at the right time, because the business I'd set up was a training business, but predominantly I was interacting with my clients in the evenings and at weekends, because that's when they were available to have the classes. So, from time to time, it would present challenges with myself and my husband in terms of him, getting home from work on time, for me to then go out, to run the classes. So there were a few occasions where, things didn't work out as well as they should have. And at that time, children were 7 and 8, so I couldn't just leave them. um,
Yeah.
yeah, so that was sometimes challenging, and on occasions when the children weren't well, those type of situations can make it more difficult when you're a parent to be fully in your business, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so that means that you need to set a bit of boundaries between the business and also your family. So how did you go about that? I know you touched on a bit just now on that, but um, a lot of entrepreneurs would like to know as well, are there other things that they can do to actually maintain and set those boundaries?
I think when you running your own business, you have got some sort of flexibility, and you are really in more in control in some ways of how much time you put into the business, versus if you've got a set 9 to 5 job. And particularly before COVID, employers were expecting employees to be on the premises, from 9 till 5:30, 5 days a week. Whereas when you're self-employed, you have got that flexibility.
Hmm.
But on the other hand, it's very easy to end up working really long hours, trying to set your business up, and that can then sort of overstep those boundaries and eat into the family time. So I think I was in a very fortunate position actually, because the money that I was contributing to the household income was quite a small percentage of the total. So my husband was sort of the main breadwinner, which meant that there wasn't as much pressure on me, to earn a certain amount of money. So, while the children were growing up, I was their sort of main caregiver for them, and I was fitting my business activities around, their needs. And obviously, as they've got older and become more independent, then I've had more time to focus on the business. But I think it is difficult to. It's important to set the boundaries and to try to not overstep them too often, because obviously it can then have an impact on your family relationships.
Yeah, you mentioned something about you were the main caregiver for the children. So did you have other support system like maybe family, friends, or hired help to help you
Um,
manage those times?
Not really. The children had care from the school from time to time, where they went to after school club if necessary, until they became old enough to be on their own in the house for an hour or whatever. Um, but at that point, I was sort of sort of going towards home educating the children anyway.
Oh,
So that
okay.
was another sort of change that was made when they were 12. They came out of mainstream school, and I home educated them. So I was fortunate that business, as I said, was a part-time one anyway, and a lot of the time I was available during the day to do the schooling or the education side of things, and then go out to work in the evening and weekends. So it was a really busy time.
Mhm,
Didn't really have any support apart from my husband.
mhm.
Unfortunately, we haven't got parents anymore, so we didn't have them to rely on like some people might have. I've used help in the home, so I've had cleaners that take the pressure off in terms of keeping the house tidy and not descending into chaos, which obviously helped a lot. And I'm very bad at cleaning anyway, so it was always good
Yeah,
good to get
good to
somebody who
have
knew what they
someone.
were doing.
Same.
Yeah, and so throughout the time when the children were small, from say sort of age 4 or 5, we've had a cleaner of one sort or another to help us, and we still do that to this day. But yeah, other than that, no, not really any outside support.
Yeah, you mentioned about homeschooling. That's very interesting. So how would you communicate to your children because you're homeschooling them and at the same time you're also working part-time? How would you communicate to your children about your work commitments as well, because you're homeschooling them at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the beginning of when they first came out of school, I was still doing the classes, so I was working
Okay.
evenings and weekends, so it wasn't really a big problem in terms of there wasn't so much a clash between what I needed to do during the day.
Mhm.
Um, I might do a little bit of marketing or something if they were busy in a class, or entertaining themselves. Because remember that they're sort of 12 and 13 at this point, so they were able to spend some time doing their own thing without me there 24/7. And then when I set up the copywriting business, which was in 2019, so I was then sort of working during the day. they both of them finished their GCSEs and moved on to their sort of next stage of their education. So one went to college and the other one went and did a digital marketing apprenticeship. So they were sort of, in that sense, self-sufficient at that point. So really, we were quite fortunate that I was able to, because I was working part-time in my own business, I was able to take them out of school and home educate them quite easily. It didn't really have a big impact on my working day at that point. But yeah, when lockdown came along and I was having a lot of meetings online,
Yeah,
I
that's
would
right.
just, as everybody was, yeah, I had this sort of uh, kind of card that I would just stick up on the door, shut the door, and like, I'm in a meeting and this is the time I'm coming out. Don't disturb me unless the house is on fire or you're bleeding profusely. And that worked quite well because they were old enough, to find their own way to the fridge by then.
And start cooking something.
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
yeah, so I'm actually interested to know if do you involve your children in your business? So even if when they were young or now that they're older, do they help you in the business as well?
Um, yeah, not so much in the parenting business, but certainly now in the copywriting business. My older son Alex does do some admin work for some of my clients now and again. So
Mhm.
we provide a service for um, increasing visibility on
Mhm.
LinkedIn. So, and one of
I
those
see.
things
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
is helping with, things like connection requests and messages. So
Ah, cool. Yeah.
outreach. So yeah, Alex will get involved in sending messages out on behalf of clients and tracking sort of responses and what have you. Um, Daniel hasn't really been involved in my business, apart from telling me that my website is rubbish. He's studying computer science at
I see.
university, so he's doing a lot of web development. So
Yeah.
he has input, but not necessarily in a helpful way.
Well, we're gonna be in the same boat. Well, I did computer science when I was in uni as well. So yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
You get a lot of feedback from him.
Yes. Yeah. Some of it more
Um,
helpful than others.
so I know, like, because you're working from home and also you're home educating your children, then I feel that there's a certain stress element as well during those times. Am I correct in saying that? Or not? Or you chilled?
I think, well, as I said before, I think I was fairly fortunate that there wasn't a massive overlap between
Mhm.
what I needed to do for work and what I needed to do for the children. Um, so it was generally not too bad. The more of the stress sort of came from the challenges that I had with helping them, through their GCSEs more than problems that were coming from the business.
I see.
But as I said, I'm quite lucky that I could be quite flexible, and I realised that there are probably lots of other parents who are trying to do too many things in too short a time, and that can be very stressful. Um, but I've sort of tried to find ways to relax and maybe use meditation and yoga quite successfully to carve out a bit of me time, which was quite challenging when I had them at home full time. Because obviously a lot of parents use school as a kind of a
As an
babysitter for kids, and I always found it really quite amusing when the school holidays are coming up now, aren't they, in the summer holidays,
Yeah.
and a
I
lot of
think,
parents
yeah.
freaking out that they've got to spend 5 weeks or 6 weeks with their children and how they're going to cope with that. Um, Whereas, of course, I spent 4.5 years constantly with them. I mean, when I say that, wasn't with them 24/7, of course.
Mhm.
They did a lot of their, what I call child-led learning. So,
Mhm.
y- quite a lot of stuff that they decided they wanted to learn was done sort of on their own rather than
Mhm.
facilitated by me. So, I did have some time during the day when I was sort of, doing bits of marketing here and there. So, yeah, it worked out okay.
You mentioned self-care. So, what are those self-care routines again that you employ? Because I think a lot of parents would want to know, oh, what can I do to help with my stress?
Yeah, I think, just making sure that you don't sort of spend all the hours working, which is quite easy to do, in the initial stages of setting up a business in the first few years. It's very easy if you're working from home, you get up, you get on the laptop, and then you don't move for 8 or 9 hours, which is really bad for you, isn't it? So I try and keep reasonably short hours. I'll probably work 5 to 6 hours a day maximum. I always,
Focused work.
yeah, sometimes more focused than others. If you end up doom scrolling on LinkedIn, that can waste quite a bit of
No.
time. And try not to do that too often. But I always go out for a walk at some point
Ah,
during the
yeah, yeah,
day,
yeah.
depending on the weather. I've got quite a flexible timetable. Obviously, I have some meetings scheduled in. So, but on days when I haven't got meetings, then I'll just have a look at the weather app and see when it's going to rain, because invariably it does at the moment. And then try and fix a walk when it's not going to rain. So I've went out first thing this morning because it was lovely blue sky here. So that was very nice. And then on the way back from the walk, I stopped in the coffee shop, get a coffee, maybe do a little bit of
Nice. That's
writing
nice.
there. So I feel that's all self care, although it's integrated with the work. And also taking holidays. I'm very good at that now.
Oh, excellent. Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
So I try to have at least 4 holidays.
for holidays. Oh, that's a good tip.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Short or long haul holidays.
Well, it varies. I mean, so far this year we've had 3.5 weeks in Southeast Asia.
Nice.
We've just had 4 nights in Zurich, and then in September we're going to do 2 weeks in US and Canada,
Oh, nice.
and
That's good.
a couple of weeks' time we're going to Cornwall for 4 days.
So it's a balance of short,
Yeah,
like short
so
holidays
just
and
mix
like
it
long
mix it up a
holidays.
bit.
Yeah, four
Yeah.
holidays a year. Oh, yes. That's the life.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, if you can, why not? I mean, yeah, I always think, why wait until you're retired?
Correct. Yeah.
'Cause you never know what's around the next corner, do you?
Yeah, that's right. So,
So,
you mentioned something about like sometimes you actually put up like these notes on the door when you're doing your training or your meeting. So, can you share a moment wherein you, balancing both roles as a parent and also as an entrepreneur didn't go as planned, and what have you learned from it?
um, I suppose like the times that I can think of where perhaps the children were unwell, and I was due to run a training course. Um, I did a lot of my first aid training from my living room uh,
Okay.
originally. So I've got a kind of lounge diner, so we push all the furniture, down one end and set it up that way. And I had 12 people, I think, coming for a course. And so my son came home from school one day and said, I've got my neck's really stiff. I've got a really bad headache. So I took his temperature. It was over 40 degrees. And straight away, I'm thinking, that's not good. These are all signs of meningitis. So I started freaking out a little bit, thinking, well, what's going on here? So I gave him some paracetamol. Temperature didn't come down, and he was starting to have this kind of mottled blue
Mhm,
grey
mhm.
effect on his skin. And I'm like, no, this is not good. I need to take him to the hospital. But 12 people are arriving for a first aid course in an hour and a half. So that was crazily trying to, like, ringing round, emailing, texting everybody saying, look, this is what's happened. This is, it's my son. He's not very well. I'm sorry, but he has to take priority. I have to cancel, postpone the course, reschedule. And of course, being parents to be as they were quite understanding about it all. So I think, it's things like that an unexpected spanner in the works where you've got to quickly change tack, but and don't feel too bad about prioritizing your family, because after all, they are the most important thing. And I've had
And
them
people do
popping in.
understand as well, I guess. Like a lot of people
Yeah,
do understand it. So
Yeah, they do. They were, I mean, the clients were all brilliant, and, we managed to get it rescheduled. And I've had them kind of like, photo bombing into meetings from time to time. I remember I was running a course in the current business. I was running a course about copywriting, and, the internet just completely dropped out unexpectedly. So it's stuff like that, really, that, just kind of short-term problems, I suppose, that you have to quickly overcome. But nothing, nothing too difficult, I think. So overall, I think, I say most people are fairly understanding when things go a bit pear-shaped.
So I guess one of my last questions is if you can give like 3 tips to people who are in business and they're trying to raise their kids and having that work-life balance, what would those 3 tips be?
I think, the sort of work-life balance and sort of integrating work and life, it can probably two slightly different things. So I'd say on the balance side, it would be about, making sure that you're having a contract, really, I suppose, with
Oh, that's a good
yourself.
idea. Yeah.
Setting those clear boundaries, and not feeling guilty about having those boundaries. I think there's a lot of people want to have boundaries, but then they don't
They
feel
don't.
that they can
Yeah.
enforce them. Yeah. So it's having boundaries with your client, having boundaries with your family, having boundaries with yourself, and actually sticking to them. And I think that's what can help you to have a good work-life balance, so that work doesn't encroach on family time or self-time. Whereas I think with work-life integration is a little bit different. I think we talked about this a few minutes
Mhm.
ago with, you know, building the walk into the day, and then sort of combining that with stopping off in the coffee shop to do some client work. So it's like, how can you fit things that you need to do in your day so that they don't, take up too much time. And that sort of integration, I suppose, is the flexibility to choose when, where, and with whom you work. So I think that's a definite advantage of being self-employed over being employed, because you sometimes
You
don't
have
have a
more
lot of choice.
yeah, you have more flexibility
Yeah, I mean, I think, their employees perhaps have a bit more flexibility than they used to have. So,
compared to
perhaps they've
before. Yeah. I
compared
think
to
now
before, but
after, yeah.
they don't have flexibility over who they work with,
Oh,
generally
yeah.
speaking. The business says these are the clients you've got to deal with, and that's what you have to get on with. So I quite like the fact that I'm free to choose who I want to work with, and I have turned down the wrong people, and I have sacked clients in the past as well.
Ooh, that's really, yeah. Me too.
I'm sure you have as well.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and to not
Uh,
feel bad about it, because not everyone is a good fit for each other, are they?
oh, yes. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I guess my last question for you is how do people connect with you? Do you have any programs that you want to promote to our listeners and our viewers?
Yeah, so there's LinkedIn is a very good way to connect with me. I'm very fortunate. I've got a very strange surname, and that means I'm the only Michelle Eshkeri on LinkedIn, which so makes it really easy to find me. Or my website, which is letmewrite.co.uk. And in terms of packages, I offer retainer packages for sort of blogging and also LinkedIn content, but I'm also currently promoting a LinkedIn profile sort of makeover package,
Oh, okay.
which is
Yeah.
all the copy for your profile that you need, and also a banner and a photo shoot with a professional
Oh.
photographer, which is not me, I hasten to add. And I don't do the banner either, because I can just about draw a stick person. So I've got a professional designer that does that.
So,
That's
yeah, whole package.
Yeah, so it's a whole package to sort of improve your brand visibility. And then if some clients will also ask me to write a certain number of posts for them every month as well.
That's good. That's
So
good.
yeah.
So, yeah, so thank you, Michelle, for today. So, everyone, Do like, subscribe, and share this episode, and come back again next month. See you. Bye.
Bye bye.